Okay, guys, welcome back into another instalment of our daily podcast, What It Takes. Today, we're again very fortunate to be joined by a top man who's had a great career in football off the field and has kind of handled the day-to-day goings-on of the media side in professional football. So, Matt Hudson, great to hear from you, mate, and great for you to join us. I'm really pleased you come on the call, mate. First of all, Matt, if you could just kind of talk about, yourself. I mean, I know you're a very humble guy, and obviously you don't like to talk about yourself too much, but we're going to kind of get a great insight into you, mate, and your life and kind of the other side of the coin in terms of the day-to-day goings-on in football, off the pitch, and what it takes to kind of make a footballer and obviously run a football club, a soccer club as such, with the other side of the coin. So just kind of introduce yourself, mate, and give us a bit of background information into your career in football, in soccer, and kind of how you got to where you got it in the media side, mate.
Yeah, no problems. I mean, I kind of got into football way back in 2001. So I was kind of not long out of university. I'd worked for a sports website in the UK called Football 365, which I think is still pretty popular worldwide, and a lot of people do visit that site. And after a couple of years there, an opportunity came up to join a professional football club in the UK called Colchester United. Basically, they were looking for someone to come in and look after their website. And kind of that is obviously what I've been working on before, and kind of moved across there in 2001, and kind of over the course of the years, I kind of ended up taking charge of all of the media and public relations side of the football club, a lot of the marketing side, just trying to tell the story of what was going on at the football club day to day, making sure that the messages were getting out there, that people were wanting to come to games, that tickets were being sold, and kind of just trying to position the club well in the local community. So working with our football community team to talk about the programmes that they were delivering, and kind of getting the players out and about around Colchester to basically kind of really embed the club in the town and make them sort of really well thought of. So it was a really kind of interesting 18 years, and the club that I left in September of last year was very different to the one that I joined all that time ago. After they moved to the new stadium in 2008, and kind of that really sort of transformed what the club could be, because they were suddenly able to run a whole lot of events off the pitch, including kind of big concerts, and obviously they also held 6 international fixtures in the time that I was there as well. So you kind of get to see all sides of it, really. And I think I was very fortunate to be in behind the scenes and kind of get to know quite a lot of the players. I think it worked out there's probably over 200 players at the club in the time that I was there, and you kind of get to see a lot of different characters sort of pass through the doors at different times. Some are there for a short period, and others, some players were there for 10 years when I was there, so it's kind of, you kind of make some really good friendships in that time.
That's it, mate. Great stuff. And obviously, you've had a fantastic career, mate. Obviously, off the pitch, and you talk about how you was at the club for 18 years, and kind of the club that you joined, the club that you loved as such, mate. As a fan culture, it went through a massive transition. But obviously, I know you know the likes of Tom Bender and Craig Arnott and Alex Gilby who've had on the call, and you know him personally, mate. And they kind of spoke about coming through the ranks as kids and whatnot, and what it was like to kind of be day to day as a player. And obviously, we'll touch soon, Matty, obviously upon what it was like to literally take that club on that meteoric rise from the kind of the League One where it had been before into the Championship, and obviously the highs and lows for kind of being pushing for promotions into the Premier League when it went into the Championship kind of around 2006, 7, 8, and obviously then the lows of going back into League One and then kind of getting relegated back into League Two. We'll touch on that later on, mate. But just in terms of you, mate, I mean, I want to really hear about your insight, mate, into football. And obviously, again, you never really had a massive career in terms of a player, but it just shows, mate, that if you do want to have a career in football, it's not so much about the playing career; it's more about that desire and mentality, and obviously that ability to succeed in different ways. And just want to hear, mate, what kind of made you want to get involved in football at first, and what made you to really kind of develop that love for it?
I think I'd always kind of grown up around it. I mean, obviously played when I was a very young kid, but when you go to university, you kind of follow your club from afar. And when I finished university, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and was kind of quite lucky to get that job at Football 365. And there was a guy called Howard Johnson who'd kind of been around football media for a long time, and Willisley, who's still involved in football now with League Football Education. He was a journalist at the website I was working at the time, and straight away then I knew that sort of working in sports PR and sports marketing was something that really excited me, and kind of I think it was really useful, having been a supporter before, to try and put that into my work as well, because you kind of got an understanding of what people wanted to see and what people wanted to read, really. And I think you kind of, these days, there are so many different pathways into football, which I think is great. Whether it's kind of on the sports science side, on the analysis side, or as you say, in the back offices of football clubs in terms of ticketing or commercial or the media and marketing side of it, really. And I think guys who are kind of coming into the same stage of their life as I was when I first started culture have got great opportunities these days. But equally, it's a really competitive environment as well. So, if you're thinking of starting out now, you really need to be sort of working hard to catch that break. But I always feel, whether it's on the pitch or off it, good people will always get to where they deserve to be. Your talent will take you to where you deserve to be, and if you can back that up with a good attitude as well, whether that's someone who's wanting to break into media and PR, or someone who's wanting to be a physio, or someone who's got that natural attributes to kind of get into the game, then I think if you're a good person and you've got a good work ethic, you've got every chance to kind of get in there.
No, that's great advice, mate. Again, great advice for people who are looking to kind of get involved in the game, even if it's not as a player, just kind of obviously the day-to-day goings on of the club is brilliant. And obviously, both aware that your favourite football team, favourite football club is Colchester United. I mean, just enlighten people, mate, on why you're such a big Hughes fan, as we call them. Why you're such a big Colchester United fan.
I kind of grew up in a village just outside Colchester and went to school in Colchester as I was growing up, and me and my mates would always kind of hop on the bus on a Saturday and go and watch the games. So I always think sometimes, as much as we sort of just spoke about good attitude and good ability, sometimes you've got to catch a break as well and catch a bit of luck sometimes. And the lady who was kind of commercial manager at the time, they were looking to build a website for the football club. She'd worked with my dad previously, and she knew that I was doing what I was doing with the football website in London, and kind of she gave me the opportunity to kind of interview for that job and get in that way. And I think, as I say, sometimes you just need that spot of fortune to kind of get you where you want to be. And so, I'm very, very grateful for the fact that I was able to work for the football club that I loved. And there are opportunities in that 18 years to kind of move to other clubs, and there's a real kind of thought process where I wanted to move on elsewhere, but I think had so many good times at Colchester that I really did enjoy it there, and was kind of glad that I did stick about for as long as I did.
No, that's it, man. Obviously, speaking about you're there for 18 years, mate. I mean, I can't remember you as a kid myself. Obviously, I went through the whole system, as you know, and I mean, watching you kind of grow and develop through the whole time, and you're there for a very long time, mate, and developed a lot. I mean, just in terms of how old was you, Matty, when you first got involved at the club? What age were you when you first started working at the club?
Must have been 22, 23, something like that. I think so. It's my second job out of university. Kind of had 18 months at another company, and then came across to Colchester. And I think I remember saying to my friend at the time that, if I don't take this job now, when it's kind of come up, the person who takes it might be there for 5 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, I took it and I was there for nearly 20 years. Do you know what I mean? So, I think football is such a difficult industry to get into in the first instance.
Of course.
But once you're in there, and once you kind of start to establish your reputation and get yourself a network of people that trust and kind of work alongside you, then I think it's very easy to move around inside the game and kind of build your reputation that way.
Definitely, mate. I'd say it's all about ability as well, but obviously that network, mate, and obviously who you know is always important, and once you kind of get your foot in the door, the opportunity's there, but you've got to be able to take it, mate. Again, someone like yourself who has taken it and has worked very hard, and obviously now you've established yourself and people know you, and as I say, because you're very good at what you do, it's now opened more doors, and again, that opportunity comes around, but you've got to take it with both hands and grasp it. And just want to kind of hear, mate, obviously now the day-to-day goings on kind of inside the football club, mate. How does it kind of work management-wise? Obviously, I know you handle a lot of that in terms of ticketing, in terms of promotions, in terms of, making sure all the players are taken care of, liaison and whatnot. Just kind of tell us, mate, as a day-to-day for yourself, Matty Hudson, 9 to 5, how did it look for you when you work at the club?
I think probably across the course of that time, it changed a hell of a lot. Mm-hmm. You kind of go back to that early time, 2001, through the early period of it, really kind of things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and kind of Snapchat and TikTok and all those sort of things, and didn't really exist at that time. And I think you only really sort of had websites and things like that to really be able to tell your story. So as it develops, kind of the opportunity to build a personality and build a profile for the football club on digital platforms was really exciting. And you were doing it with fresh pair of eyes and kind of really getting to tell the club story through those channels, really. But the day-to-day was things like writing the match programme, and obviously you do that in the lead up to a home game. You'd be doing things like looking after the media inquiries, so particularly at the times where the club was doing well, you get a lot of national interest, things like looking after the press when they come in on a match day, and like you say, kind of looking after the players as well and getting them out and about. And I think one thing that became increasingly important in the time that I was there, and I think is going to become even more important as time goes on. Is kind of guiding those young players from a media and PR perspective about the opportunities that are there for them to build their own story and build their own profile, but also the risks that are there as well, because one ill-judged tweet, or you've seen it recently with some of the players who are kind of breaking government rules on lockdown. You can suddenly get yourself a reputation for the wrong reason. So I think that was part of the job that I really enjoyed. Was you mentioned Alex Gilby, but I think seeing the likes of him and Frankie Kent and Sammy Smolix and Tom Lapsey kind of come through in the game when you've kind of hopefully played some part in their off-pitch development. That's something you kind of really take a lot of pleasure out of, seeing them do so well. So, football's changed dramatically in that 20 years, and I think everyone's aware is a real challenge for what happens next once we come out of this current situation as well.
No, that's it, mate. Again, great insight, mate. And obviously, speak about there is a lot more exposure now. There's a lot more kind of insight and ways to kind of communicate in terms of players and vice versa. And as the age-old saying goes, mate, with great power comes great responsibility. And obviously, a lot of these kids that are coming out of school as such and going into the youth team and then going into pro football, it is a meteoric rise. And obviously, the support network they need to be able to kind of help them go through it is massive. And we've touched upon obviously how important parents are and coaches and whatnot. Obviously now in terms of you guys in that liaison role where you're kind of acting as like their dad as such to help them with the other side of the coin and making sure that the things they're saying are right and well advised rather than ill advised. And just want to kind of talk to you now, mate, in terms of, obviously you was at the club for a long time. I mean, you went through the whole transition, mate, from as we would say, little old Colchester into an established championship team where they got promotion, got a new stadium, the new chairman come in, changed a lot of things, made the club a lot more professional, and then the demise as such, mate, where it kind of went back down into League One, then went into League Two. Just talk us through those years, mate, from the League One to the Championship, the FA Cup run against Chelsea, and then kind of going back the other way where they dropped back down the leagues into League Two now.
I mean, I think for any long-term supporter of the football club, the fact that we had those 2 years in the Championship was mind-blowing, really, and kind of particularly in that first season where we managed to get into the Championship. You're beating all sorts of teams every week, teams with multi-million-pound players, teams with huge resources, but they'd come to Mayo Road, which was a tin shack of a stadium, really. They'd come there and kind of they were sweeping teams aside 3-4-0 every week, and you kind of look at each other at that point and go, you've got to enjoy this, because this could potentially be as good as it ever gets. And obviously, unfortunately for the football club, they got relegated the season they went into the new stadium. I do wonder whether if they'd been able to hold on to that season and go into the new stadium in the Championship, the money they might have made off the gates then, and what direction that might have taken the football club in at the time. But the move to the new stadium had to happen. I think for a modern football club, Layer Road was never going to be able to give it what they needed. And when we moved to the new ground, suddenly we had a multi-million-pound business where we could host events, we could hold business conferences, big matches, big concerts and stuff. And all of a sudden you go from being a small football club to a decent-sized club with a lot of money coming through the door. So it was frustrating for everybody. I think that the team or the results kind of meant that we slipped back through the divisions again, because there won't be many clubs that have got a better setup than Colchester in the bottom two divisions. And unfortunately, with this season having been temporarily cut short, at least I think it looked like we were in sort of well placed to get back up into League One again. But the good thing has been seeing those young lads come through. I think they've got a real good infrastructure there now, and if you're a young player at Colchester these days, you've got every opportunity to make it. But kind of going back to that original part of the question, the Championship years were unbelievable, really. Kind of the press box at Layer Road held 15, 16 people. And you might have had some other clubs coming down, Championship clubs coming down, who had media teams of 10 people on their own. So you're filling the press box up just with the other team, let alone any national journalists or any international media that might have wanted to come and watch and see what was going on. And that first season we went to Stoke on the last away day of the season with genuine hopes of getting into the playoffs for the Premier League. And at that point there was kind of conversations going on in the background with Ipswich Town about a ground share. About using their grounds if we got into the Premier League, and you look back at that now, and that's a crazy situation, really, to think that we were that close to kind of really breaking into the big time.
No, definitely, mate. Again, just talking about the mentality, mate. Obviously, we spoke about mentality quite a lot, and diet and nutrition ability. Just in terms of yourself as someone who's had a great career off the pitch in football, I mean, what mentality would you say it takes, mate, to have any success in the game, let alone in life with football and soccer?
I think we go back to the same thing again about being someone who can build a network and being someone who understands what makes different people tick. I think if you're going to get anywhere in life, and particularly in football, you really need to kind of, it sounds a bit cynical, but play the game a little bit and kind of, make sure that you look after people who need that support, but equally kind of, be able to sort of stand your own ground when it's needed as well. So I think if you can build relationships and build networks and kind of get people to respect you, then that's the sort of thing that will help you build a successful career, because people will know that if you're telling them something good or bad, you're telling them that for the right reason, and for sort of their benefit and yours. And I think kind of that's something that stood me in good stead, that I'd like to think that kind of a lot of people did respect what I did and kind of understood why we did things in certain ways, whether that be supporters and the stories that you're telling them, or kind of working all your way through up to the board of directors and the chairman, that you kind of feeding back the other way to let them know what people were thinking.
No, great advice, mate. Again, I think it's very important that people hear the insight from off the pitch in football. And just in terms of yourself, mate, obviously, I know you're a very well-educated man, mate. You went to university and stuff. And obviously, out in the States, we speak about a lot with coaches and players and stuff, how in the States it is really important to be that student athlete. And obviously, in England, it's a case of if you're in football, if you're a footballer, the education side isn't very important. It's more of a case of you're there for football, whereas if you go to college or university in England as such, that's all about college, whereas university, whereas in the US, it's both. It's a student athlete mindset. And just talk to us there, Matty, about how important education is and how important it is for you, education that you went and got to go and get your role in football and soccer as the main media guy at a pro club.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that the two setups in the two countries are very different, and I think in some respects the UK is maybe starting to lean a little bit more towards how the American model set up, because they recognise now that not many kids will get a pro contract, and when you've kind of been in the system for many years and get to 18 and maybe don't get a pro, that's a big potential hole to fall into afterwards. So I think that football clubs are becoming a lot more wise about providing that extra off-the-pitch support to make sure that the players are better equipped if they don't get their pro contract, to then find their path in life, whether that be semi-pro or whether it be going into physiotherapy or whether it's stepping away from the game entirely, really. So, looking back on my own sort of education, I ended up doing a geography degree at university, just simply, one, because I was good at it, and two, I didn't know particularly what I wanted to do at that time. But I think whatever you're studying, you'll pick up skills, you'll pick up, again, that kind of relationship things about how you work with different people. And I think you kind of take that forward as well. But I think having a good education behind you is really important, because whether it be football or any other career you look to build, people will look at that as one thing and kind of, your character as another, and kind of put the two things together to decide whether you're someone they want to work with, whether it be as a player or as a businessman, or as someone who wants to build a career in a different walk of life, really.
No, definitely, mate. Again, great advice. As you say, mate, you touched upon there. I mean, we were speaking to guys the other day. Dominic Coleman, who's a very high level coach now at Queen's Park Rangers. He was at Queen's Park Rangers through Bristol City. Now he's at Barnsley as head of goalkeeping. And he speaks about those 1%, Matty, those kind of little edges and little bits of advantage you need to go and be successful and have your super strength. And on the flip side, that 1%, as you say, I mean, players and pro footballers, obviously, the dream for every young player and every kind of person as such is to go and be a pro footballer, pro soccer player. But it is only really the 1% that make it. You have to be so good, you have to be so focused, and even then, as I kind of found out, mate, you have to have that little bit of luck as well, where injuries and whatnot and people that come and go and stuff, it can kind of cost you, and obviously you have to have that plan A and be intent on trying to make it in that career you want to go and do, but also that plan B for school and whatnot, where I found it. I always kind of made sure that I was doing well at school and made sure that I was ready just in case, and it's so important to have that plan B and have that school education to fall back on it if things don't work out, or if you decide you want to choose a different career path. And just want to again go back on yourself, mate. I mean, obviously we spoke about the championship season that Colchester had, obviously being one league below the Premier League, which is the pinnacle, the big time as such in English football and kind of world football, really, if we're looking at that bigger picture. What kind of stories and what kind of games stick out to you, mate, as being the best games you've been involved in? And obviously the flip side, what games stick out and times stick out as the worst times you've been involved in it in football and soccer?
I think probably in terms of the best times, I think, again, kind of going back to that first championship season, really, I remember towards the end of that campaign, we played Sunderland, and Sunderland had Roy Keane, the kind of former Manchester United midfielder, in charge at the time, and they were unbeaten in about 4 months and looked like they were romping towards the championship title in that first season. And they turned up at Layer Road and we bashed them 3-1, really. And it's kind of like, they kind of went back with the tails behind their legs and kind of, we played Ipswich on a par. We obviously played Ipswich, a local opposition, local sort of rivals, a lot of times in friendlies, and all of a sudden we were playing them as peers in the same division. And Carl Dugard, kind of the captain at the time, scored the only goal in front of the TV cameras, and Colchester beat Ipswich for probably the first time in 50 years. And kind of is, you're kind of seeing grown men who supported Colchester all their life, probably in their offices at work, had their ears being bent by their Ipswich mates that they were the little brother as such, and all of a sudden we were punching at a level, and kind of they were the ones going to work on the Monday with the bragging rights as such. But I think kind of when we got relegated out of the championship that second season, it was kind of always on the cards a little bit. So you didn't have that last minute heartbreak of any kind of disappointment or anything like that, really. You kind of had time to adjust to it and expect it to happen. I think probably the hardest season was probably the one in League One, where we ended up conceding like 99 goals in the season. And, you were turning up and getting beat every week. And as kind of the media team for the club and kind of the ones looking after the social media feeds and the ones kind of doing a lot of fan liaison, that was a tough season because you were getting battered by the fans every week. You were trying to tell a good story, but when you weren't winning at all and you were conceding a lot of goals and people were just generally groaning at you every week, it was really quite hard to stay motivated in that season. But I think equally when you come out the other end of that and you can deal with that criticism and you can kind of manage with that, then you come out a lot stronger from it as well.
Definitely, mate. No, you're spot on. Obviously, mate, just kind of talking about yourself there, we speak about the highs and lows at the club, mate. As even the main media guy, how did you do? Because obviously everything relied, mate, on yourself. Your job was all about the team and the players, and again, we'll touch a bit more on how you kind of handle the players yourself as the media guy. I mean, you spoke about it a little bit, but we'll kind of get right into that depth in a second. I mean, how was it for you, mate, dealing with the club doing really, really well? And obviously, as you say, you speak about the old press box at Layer Road where it only held 16 people and the other club were bringing down 10 at once, and you had to kind of work around that. And obviously on the flip side, going into the new stadium where you've got a massive press box, but unfortunately the level the club's playing at isn't as high as people would have liked, and you maybe got more space for yourself than you'd expect. So what was it like, mate, kind of dealing with the highs and the lows of being at a football club day to day, and obviously the level that the club was playing at, and how did you deal with that as the media man?
I think kind of you really have to learn the skills of being a diplomat. As I say, you're kind of dealing with so many different personalities, and the behind the scenes of a football club itself is quite highly structured. I mean, there's a lot of people who know that football career can be really short, particularly for managers where results one week to the next could really dictate their life in or out of the game. For footballers who sometimes on 1 or 2 year contracts, so every week and every training session and every match matters to them about their ability to stay in the game. So you kind of have to deal with all these different personalities who are dealing sometimes in quite high pressurised and stressed environments. Then you're kind of dealing with the behind the scenes people, and we've been very lucky to have had some great staff at Colchester in the time that I was there, but you kind of having to meet the fans' expectations looking into the football club, and then the chairman's expectations within the football club in terms of getting gates up or putting statements out and things like that. So I think you really do have to, it's almost a little bit about being a bit of a politician and kind of just making sure that everyone's pulling in the same direction. And football can be great fun. When you're on a winning run and the team's doing well and everything like that, you can have some real fun on things like social media and kind of everybody's happy and kind of anything goes really. And then other times, it can be a real tough place to be. And you kind of have to, just as I say, just make sure you kind of pull other people along with you, just to make sure that the club does keep ticking over in those tough times, because you see a lot of people, whether it be players or staff, just burn out from that pressure. It can be really kind of quite difficult.
No, definitely, again, great insight, pal. Obviously, as you say, I mean, I know someone who was a massive figure at that club. I mean, people may not know how important it is to have guys like yourself, but obviously, I mean, you were the glue, mate, keeping it all together. You've got the chairman, you've got the players, you've got the staff, you've got the guys who are handling the business as such on the football pitch, on the soccer field. But obviously, people like yourself are the ones that are mediating, as you say, kind of being diplomatic and a politician, where wherever they kind of go in their role, you're trying to make sure that everyone's on the same page and heading in the right direction. You're almost like a kind of counsellor as well, Matty, where you're kind of keeping people ticking over and giving that little insight of obviously where they're in their little bubble in terms of the football pitch and where it's so kind of everything's high stake and you're off on the other side of it. You're kind of giving that insight to them to keep them moving and keep them going right. And just want to talk about how you would handle the likes of the chairman and the likes of players and coaches and managers, because I mean during the time of Colchetster, we spoke to the likes of Tom Bender and Craig and Gilby and whatnot. I mean, there was even myself, it kind of coincided with my injury, which was probably the worst time of my career as such, where the club was moving at such a growth and such a rate, where during an 18-month period, I think we had Geraint Williams, who was the manager at first, then we had Paul Lambert come in, Aidy Bluthroyd, we had John Ward, and then we had Joe Dunn, all in the space of 18 months to 2 years, who were first team managers. And that 4 or 5 managerial change in such a short period of time. I mean, you look at someone like Man United, where Alex Ferguson was there for 20, 30 years, and then United went for a change. And it's no coincidence, I feel, that Man United's kind of results dropped a lot because they chopped and changed so much. I mean, what was it like, mate, in terms of dealing with players, and especially during that massive change in time where they're bringing in different people to try and grow the club? The chairman's very ambitious, and then the reality where kind of things settle in and he's finding his feet, and obviously you're there all the way through from League One to the Championship, and then during this time, how did you kind of handle that situation, and how would you handle players, coaches, and people like the chairman alike?
I think kind of where I was quite lucky is that for a lot of my time when I was there, I kind of had Dave Gregory sitting alongside me as well, and he had been at the club previously as a player for 7-8 years and kind of played 250 games for the club, been in a lot of different dressing rooms, dealt with a lot of different managers himself. So I think between the two of us, with the skill set and that we had, it kind of meant that we were able to kind of manage those the expectations from different people within the club. So I think you're right, there's a swift turnover of managers, and just as you start to develop that kind of that trust and that relationship with them, they're out the door and someone else comes in. Mm-hmm. And then equally, as you say, like the chairman was very ambitious and kind of very determined to kind of take the club in the right direction. And so with that, you try and manage that relationship, but equally you understand that he's the one with his hands on the purse strings, and if he makes a decision, you've got to find the best way to implement that and kind of explain it in such a way that kind of people outside of the football club get what you're trying to do as well. So I think you certainly learn how to kind of manage different people, and particularly having David alongside me really helped, because he kind of understood what that was like inside the dressing room as well.
No, definitely, mate. I'd say fantastic insight, mate. Obviously, you're showing that that the aim is to be a footballer, a soccer player, but if you don't make it, you can make an equally good career, being involved just as much day to day, as a media guy or any other role, kind of on the off-field stuff in a football club. And it's brilliant. And just in terms of yourself, mate, who maybe didn't play the game at the highest level, but has dealt with high-level players and high-level people in the game day to day for nearly best part of 2 decades, mate. Fantastic career you've had off the field at a football club. What advice would you give to players, mate, trying to make it in the game? And what advice would you give to parents, and even if they can't make it as a footballer, as a soccer player? I mean, again, the advice you would give them. I remember we had conversations where it didn't work out for myself, and you touch upon different avenues I could go down, and the advice you gave to me was colossal. So just share some insight, mate, if you would, on what you would give to players as advice to go and be successful in football, and obviously parents as well looking to get their kids success in football in life. What advice would you give to both, and why?
I think it's one of those, is the first thing is to listen to the people who are trying to coach you, and that kind of coach counts for both the parents and the player, I think, because those people are trying to help you and trying to put you in the right direction. You might not always agree with what they're saying, but generally they've kind of got a background which means they're trying to provide the best outcome for your son or for you as a parent. But I think kind of always have that plan B, like we said before. I think we mentioned before about kind of the education they give young lads now, but a couple of players who stand out to me during my time at the club was Sam Walker. So Sam had dropped down from from Chelsea to kind of come and play for Colchester, and played the best part of 250 games for Colchester. But every time he was on the coach for an away game, he was studying for a law degree. Mm-hmm. Or a business degree, because he knew that that could be taken away from him at any minute. And Mark was doing the same. Mark was studying for a degree while they were on the coaches or away games, because they're savvy enough to know that football is such a short-term game that you have to have that backup plan. But I think if as long as you take on board advice and kind of have that intelligence to filter out the things that are unimportant, and don't get caught up in all the the politics of it all, and just focus on the things that are important to you, then you just want to come away from it knowing you're giving it your best shot. And if that best shot gets you into his career, then all well and good. But equally, get out. If you get to come out of the game, do it with no regrets. Know that you've put everything on the table and you've done what you can.
No, brilliant stuff. And what about the parents, mate? Obviously, that's great advice. You talk about cousins there, obviously, I know very well, and Sam as well. Again, looking at the bigger picture, because as you say, even though they're footballers and they're earning good money, at the same time, anything could happen at any time. Like I found at the age of 15, where your kind of career, you see it before your eyes, and it can be ripped away really very, very quickly. And again, it's so important to have that backup plan and different ways, even just to enlighten yourself, because you might pick up things from these different things you're doing that can help you on the pitch. And just in terms of parents, mate, what advice you give to parents? Obviously, back home, people are they're very, very keen and passionate. Obviously, maybe the insight is a bit higher because the game has been around so long. It's our national game, and people are kind of more aware. Whereas in the States, there's a lot of heart, a lot of intent, but maybe not as much insight. And again, we've had players like Tom and Alex and Craig on. Again, they've also done very similar things, mate. Even Jody, where they're looking at parents who can push their players and offer that support, but at the same time not push too much and ensure that the players are making their own decisions and giving them guidance, but allowing those players to own their own career from a young age and try and kind of allow them to go and make their own choice. So what advice as a media guy, mate, who again has had a massive influence on a lot of, if not all, players' careers that have come through the club at a professional level at Colchester, what advice would you give to parents who are looking to try and get their kids the best success?
I think if we started purely from the media and PR perspective, just almost even from a very young age, from 14, 15, or be mindful of what they're doing on social media and what kind of social media footprint they're creating for themselves. Obviously you've kind of got to give your kids the freedom to just do what they want to do on there, but also know that when clubs are looking at players, they will probably look at social media histories and things that they've done on there, and it's very easy to Google somebody now and find all their profiles and see what they're like. So as a parent, just kind of be on top of what that is and what that looks like, and kind of steer your kids in the right direction. But as you say, I think for a parent, it's almost about that emotional support. I think within football clubs, the coaches kind of know what they are and aren't seeing in terms of someone's football development. But as a parent, it's kind of about just looking after their kids when they do have those highs and do have those lows, and kind of just try and keep them on the straight and narrow a little bit, just because, as you say, if it turns out that there isn't a longer term future in the game, you're going to need to be there for them at that point as well, and just to kind of keep them straight after that. So I think just it's being a parent in the purest sense of being a parent, but within that football and sporting context.
That's definitely great advice. I mean, you speak about the social media side, mate, as someone who's got great insight into that, and obviously that's your game as such, mate. And obviously, it's important for kids and players and whatnot to be normal guys and to kind of say what they think and go for that development stage and phase, because they've got to really kind of find themselves. It's important to still have that free speech, but at the same time, if they make a mistake or say something that maybe isn't what they wanted to, again, that importance of that support, and talk about it to their family and their friends, and again, they can always kind of take the post down or remove it or delete it and kind of move forward with that. So it's really important for them to have both sides, where they can kind of go and say what they want, but at the same time, if they say a silly comment or they make the wrong they set the wrong context, it's important that they can realise that and learn and grow from there and take it down and move forward. And just in terms of yourself, mate, I mean, where are you now, mate, in the world? Obviously, we've got the coronavirus currently, and obviously I know that it's a tough time for everyone now. I mean, what's your current role now, Matty? And obviously, where are you in the world? And again, where would you like to leave everyone as we come to the end of this call? What advice would you give to people now? And just kind of tell us now where you are and the role you're kind of doing right now.
Yeah, so kind of start of last season, I kind of got approached about a job in London, and kind of, I was at the stage of my life where, sort of starting to get close to getting my marriage sorted out and things like that. So, or getting married, I should say. Yeah. And and kind of thought, do I want to kind of stay in football forever? I'd had a real good stint in there and made some brilliant friends and kind of had some great memories. But this opportunity came up to go and work at a company based in Stratford near West Ham Stadium. They deliver a lot of public health projects, including a men's weight loss program called ManVFat, which kind of guys playing small-sided football games and kind of are guided with their weight loss and kind of general health and well-being. So
has that helped you, mate? Has that helped your figure?
You know me, I've always been a skinny boy, so I'm okay. But there's a lot of guys around the country who love football, and probably things like Slimming World and Weight Watchers weren't for them because it's quite a female-heavy classes and stuff. So ManVFat football's been a real good opportunity. We've got 5,000 guys in the UK playing this every week, or we'd had to done prior to kind of coronavirus hitting. And these guys were losing ridiculous amounts of weight. Some guys up to 8, 9, 10 stone on the back of being involved with our program. So a lot of the stuff we do sort of genuinely changes people's lives, and I still stay in touch with people within football and do the odd bit here and there for the EFL and the FA. But I think kind of football can be quite all-consuming in terms of the hours it demands from you, and the unsociable hours of working Tuesday night games and Saturday games and stuff. So it's been a real nice kind of opportunity to step out of that world for a bit and just have a bit of a normal routine, really.
No, of course, mate. Again, great insight, mate. And obviously, you speak about there the weight stuff you're doing now, and people losing kind of 12 stone. I think you said. I mean, for the Americans listening who deal with pounds still, I mean, I think what's that? That's about 150 pounds, is it, mate? I mean, I'm not massive on the conversion rate, but that's a hell of a lot of weight. So yeah, guys that are listening from the US, who I know there's quite a lot of you listening, which is great. And again, I hope you really enjoyed the insight. Go and do your own calculations on Google and find out how much that is, because that is a hell of a lot of mass to be shed. And it's just great hearing your insight, mate. Obviously, someone that didn't have a career as such on the pitch. You've made a fantastic career for yourself off the pitch, and you've been as important, if not more important, than kind of the players and whatnot who go and do the stuff on the pitch. And again, without you, mate, I know for a fact that a lot of players, wouldn't have had the support and the help and even the careers they've got on to go and get. And even the chairman and coach, I know everyone's very grateful to the work you did, mate, and have done. And again, it just shows that if you do take a role in football and soccer, it is going to kind of shape your life into different ventures. I mean, obviously Matt's now working in London and got a great career in something else where he's kind of been able to step back from the intensity of football and soccer. And even myself, kind of coming out to the States after being involved in football and soccer for a long time, you are definitely going to learn a hell of a lot if you are involved in the game in whatever capacity. And obviously there are going to be highs and lows, but it definitely kind of shapes you if you can kind of stick with it and make the best of it. So what kind of little thoughts would you like to leave Pit with now, mate, before we finish this call, mate?
I think the most important thing is just to enjoy football. Do you know what I mean? There is a lot of ups and downs in it, and there are a lot of emotional moments and stuff, but it's a great game to kind of be involved in. And wherever it takes you within the game, whatever kind of role you play, however high up in the game you get, you will make friends and relationships for life. Do you know what I mean? There's people that I still talk to now who were involved in football 20 years ago, and kind of people that 3 weeks ago that I've sort of spoke to. And I think football creates a different kind of friendship, and that's what I'd say to people is stay in touch with those you kind of find along the way, really.
No, great advice, mate. Again, really appreciate coming on the call, mate, and obviously wish you all the best during this challenging time. And obviously we know you're going to get great success in whatever you do, mate. That's the kind of person and mindset and mentality you are, and you develops. And really appreciate your time, mate, and wish you all the best, mate. Okay.
Cool. No worries, mate. Good to speak.